Are you debating on whether or not you should go buy wrist straps, and then if you're going to buy them, which wrist straps you should get, or if you shouldn't get them at all? So you're just sort of in the quandary of wrist strap, no wrist strap. Is there a special type of wrist strap that I should use so that I can safely hold on to a bar while I'm working out without fear that I will drop it? This video is perfect for you. My name is Dr. Molly, and I am with Your Goals Physical Therapy. It is very common for people to feel like one hand is weaker than the other, and maybe even just sort of make up for it in everyday life by modifying how they move and what they expect one hand to do versus the other. That's very hard to do when you're lifting, right? Because especially if you're going to do something like deadlift, you're going to bench, you're going to do a lat pull down machine. All these things require both arms to be able to pull basically the same amount of weight. And so if one chronically feels like it's weak or it just gets achy all the time, it limits our workouts. We can't work out as hard as we want. We can't lift as much weight as we want. And that can be very frustrating. And if your wrist doesn't bother you really at any other point in your life, you're probably not looking for a medical solution because it's not that big of a deal. But it's bad enough that you're on here looking for a solution to how to improve it while you're doing your favorite activities, lifting and trying to be healthy and overall just fixing our bodies, right? And making everything better. So I've seen there are a few types of wrist wraps. They have the ones that just go straight around your wrist. Then they have the ones that go around the bar. And then that really makes sure that you can't let go of it. The ones that go here are typically more for if something hurts, it just gives you a little bit of stability. Because it's compressing the two bones in your forearm, so it can help alleviate, especially if you have kind of tendinitis-y pain or it gets really achy from overwork. Whereas the wraps that go all the way around the machine are really for people who have just a very weak grip and they just don't feel like they're going to be able to hold on to it, or they're upping their weight and they're afraid that they'll let go of it because the weight's too not too heavy maybe, but heavy. And they want to make sure that they can really hold on to that. The way that I look at this and the way that I look at wrist wraps is that if you are in a meet and you are going to do your max rep and you want to make sure that you have control of that bar, then by all means you need to be safe and you should use whatever helps you maintain control of the weight that you're using. But to my mind, that should be a special event. If you're talking about your everyday workouts and you're having to feel that you need to have a wrist wrap or you need to have something actually do the gripping for you, that needs to be addressed. And if it's never been addressed and you don't have any chronic reason why that should be happening, it can probably be fixed and you won't need the wrap. There are lots of reasons that your grip strength can be less on one side or the other. And most of those reasons are 100% fixable. You can improve the strength and stability and coordination in both of your arms so that they match, so that they can both pull. And then you would just save the use of a wrist wrap for, I would say, special occasions. But if you're doing a meet, if you're really trying to pull a whole lot of weight, for a specific event. But you shouldn't be training with them. That shouldn't be your training weight because that is going to lead you to having another injury. If your hand isn't strong enough to stabilize the weight and control the weight that you're moving, then something above it is going to be doing more work, even if you have the wrist wrap. So if you can't grip, then that puts more strain on your forearms, that puts more strain on your shoulder, it puts more strain on your back. And I know that seems a little bit silly, but we are all connected. And if one part is not able to help us out, then we are straining other parts in that system. And so I keep using this reference as deadlifts because, deadlifts, squats, and lat pull down seem to be when I see this the most, but that's not the only time people use them. You don't want it to be that your hand is just not doing anything and everything below that has to do more work, because that's going to overdevelop some muscles and underdevelop others. But having somebody isolate exactly why it is that your grip strength is that much different on your, let's say, your left versus your right, then that can open up a whole world, right? That could make it to where you're able to lift more weights, able to get stronger or bigger or whatever your goal is without injuring another body part. And I have examples of this. So somebody had a long-standing history of shoulder problems. Things popped and clicked, and they just sort of ignored it because it's just who they are, and it's been popping and clicking since high school, and we don't pay any attention to that. But as they got a little bit older and things happen, but they were still very active, they're still lifting weights. So then they started using a wrist wrap because that was the easiest way to make sure that they could still lift the weight that they wanted. Problem is that when they got up to a certain level and got fatigued, then they ended up pulling, not pulling, they strained their shoulder. They didn't tear the rotator cuff, it wasn't that dramatic, but it did seriously injure their shoulder. And so they had to come in for rehab, which is how I figured this out. So they sought out having somebody help them with their shoulder problem. And then you kind of look at all these, so when they come in, you do the evaluation and you see that there were basically lots of muscle imbalances because they had been dealing with a chronically weak shoulder since before they can remember that it has happened, and it had affected their hand strength. And so when they were lifting, they made all these new changes. They, you had their forearm was always sore. Their shoulder was not in the same place. Like if you looked at their posture, all these like little things that nobody but, somebody who stares at somebody for a living and picks apart motion would ever pay attention to. But when you're trying to deadlift over 200 pounds, it makes a big difference. All that extra weight wears things down a little bit faster maybe than if you weren't trying to lift that much weight. But what fun is that? So that brings me back. So if you're trying to go into a meet and you just want to make sure that you have extra strength and that you're not going to drop the weight at the worst possible moment, then that's one thing. But if you are just training every day, trying to stay healthy and just trying to challenge yourself, I would avoid using a wrap and seek help to figure out how to improve the overall grip strength. Because you may find that it's not actually your hand that's a problem, it's something else, your back, your shoulder, something. So I hope that this information helps you, and I hope that you get to that deadlift, that weight that you're looking for. Bye.